Today my name is D-Lem. Hey, my name's D-Lem. I play in the technical death metal band Archspire, and today I'm taking a lesson from a guitarist that I deeply, deeply admire. He's the one of three of the guitarists of a band called Periphery, and I got to spend some time with him and the rest of the dudes very recently when my band opened for his band in a couple of different spots in the U.S. And it was very, very fun. Not only does he play in Periphery, he also plays in a band called Haunted Shores, not The Haunted Shore. Haunted Shores, which I absolutely love. Oh my goodness, what a killer band. He's got a really weird, in my opinion, really weird, kind of strange, unique approach to the guitar. So I really am excited about taking a lesson from him. And so if you could just help me welcome Mark Holcomb. Hey, Mark, what's going on, buddy?
Hey man, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. We've been trying to do this for a long time, so I'm glad we finally nailed it down.
Well, I see you as sort of a guitar. You seem like a soft spirit that embodies musicianship and guitar playing, and you just seem like, I don't know. It's like a comfort. When I hear your voice, it's comforting to me, and that might sound a little bit strange. And it's the first time I've ever thought it or said it out loud. But I don't know. How long you been playing guitar? What the hell?
Yeah, what the hell? So yeah, man. Oh, thank you very much. I'm quite flattered, by the way. Yeah, people always used to say, like when I was younger, they're like, "Why do you listen to the devil music? Like you're so
Right.
calm and and chill and relaxed about everything and easygoing, whatever." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's because I listen to devil music. I get all my anger out through music." But no, I started playing guitar when I was like 12, 13.
Right.
And ever since I started, like I kind of just wanted to be like a rock guitar, like I wanted to be in Judas Priest when I was a kid,
Okay.
and like Metallica and Testament and Slayer and stuff like that. So yeah, I cut my teeth on metal. Like I know Periphery gets thrown into like the prog bucket a lot. So they expect us to come from just cutting our teeth on Rush and all these old school progressive bands, but like I'm old school metal through and through.
Right.
Like that's where I came from, and that's all I really ever aspired to be when I was a kid. But
Wow.
but yeah, I mean, the guitar's been my only real like serious thing that I've been like decent at in life, and that's why I keep coming back to it, and that's why, I guess I've been really lucky in my life and really lucky in my career to take it to where I have.
Well, yeah. I have a couple questions for you, if you don't mind, about specifically the guitar playing that you do. And I mean, honestly, when I watch your guitar playing, I noticed one big thing. I noticed that you are a fan of big chords with, like, from what I can tell, lots of extensions and like kind of interesting voicings and stuff. And I read up a little bit, and correct me if I'm wrong, but are you like a theory guy traditionally or not really? Like, are you doing trial and error when you're writing that kind of stuff? Because you listen to some Periphery stuff or Haunted Shores, and it's like, how the fuck did you come up with that chord? And a second part of the question, do you have any favorite chords that you play where you're like, oh, I love this one, or these are my go-to kind of my tool.
Yeah. Well, yeah, to answer your first question, I don't come from a theory background at all. Like I was pretty much I was 95% self-taught. Like I took 2 lessons my first several months of playing. And after that it was like 1995. I'm dating myself here, but I would just pick songs off the radio and play them. Like if there was, I remember hearing Alice in Chains, Man in the Box when I was 13 and being like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I gotta learn that solo," and it just seemed like the hardest thing ever, and in your first year of guitar playing. But it's just like things like that, like setting these like sort of self-teaching goals to myself, no matter how ludicrous they seemed or sounded in the moment. Just like one day I'll get there. But but no, I mean, given the fact that I don't come from a theory background, nor do Jake or Misha
Oh, okay.
for
Okay, I
that
didn't know
matter.
that. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, none of them really do. We're constantly, and then like personally speaking, I'm constantly just fiddling around and tinkering with what sounds good, and to your point, chords. That's always been a big thing for me. I mean, thinking back to the early days of when I jumped on board Periphery, like 2010, and this was even a couple years before, once Haunted Shores started. I used to sort of mess around with power chords exclusively, and then I started using my thumb a lot, and this was something that again just came out of comfort. For some reason, ever since I started playing, I found it comfortable. I have bigger hands, so
Yeah.
I tended to drape my thumb over the top side of the fretboard. Sorry, you can't see that, but that's how I would
Yeah.
fret power chords when I was younger. Like I would just do this because maybe I was lazy, maybe it felt good, and then I started to sort of flesh out the rest of a chord with my remaining four fingers. So you take your thumb, lean it over the top, and then and this sounds really reductive and almost Neanderthal, but like just kind of see what sounds good voicing by voicing, note by note. And I know that if I lean my thumb down and I put my pinky 2 frets above, that's basically it's a power chord. It's just like, so you have the power chord with your thumb, and then you have this was that fifth? No, I don't even know. And then you start building out the rest of the chord note by note. You can get really sort of surgical and specific with the way a power chord sounds. And again, this is it's really basic building block stuff.
Yeah.
But once you build a chord that you like, or a second chord that you like, and I have a bunch of favorite sort of go-to, I call them power chord replacements.
Okay.
Yeah, so instead of playing that's a big Haunted Shores chord that's everywhere in the Haunted Shores and Periphery catalog as well. I hear that one in Artspire sometimes. Yeah.
This is some expensive sounding chords, dude.
Yeah, but the point is it's about finding fun, sort of spicier ways to play power chords to get the ideas across. And a power chord will work just fine, but what else can I squeeze in there? And it also gives you some other ideas as well when it comes to putting down other instrumentation. It's I really like this voicing over this chord, but it kind of sounds better if I play a power chord. What if we put this voicing down, orchestrally, or make some other instrument play it? It's it opens up a whole avenue of ways to go about layering your music. So
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, the problem with guitar, and I mean, okay. So first off, okay, real quick, how do you manage that stuff? Because do you still play with your thumb over the top of the fretboard? And if you do, how do you do that when you play songs with an 8-string guitar?
Oh, okay. So let me offer a quick caveat for other guitar players who are man, I should use my thumb more. I'm also at a disadvantage. Yeah, I'm also at a disadvantage, and you're shaking your head because you probably realize this too. And it sucks when I look at players like yourself and like a Jason Richardson or something like that, or a straight up shredder. I'll find a video on Instagram and be like, Jesus Christ. Oh, you know who is ridiculous is that Steven Taranto guy?
I just did a lesson with him, who was my first guest on this series, and it was it was difficult because I'm sitting there watching him play, and he is so stupidly fast and clean, and he showed me a couple things honestly pretty simple things. So it's economy picking. It's like 6 notes. But then he plays it so fucking fast, and then he moves it everywhere. And you can do it different shapes. So I'm watching him play that, and I practiced that a little bit afterwards, of course, because I felt very insecure about my playing after watching him play. I mean, just his approach to it is it's all alternate picked. He doesn't economy pick. Okay, well, there's a problem, and I'll back up because I said, okay, so what do you economy pick? And he said, nothing. I don't economy pick anything. And I said, you're blowing my mind right now. What do you mean? Because he does 3-note per string big runs, like something like this. Something like that. It was some fast. some fast kind of run, whatever it is. But he'll do it all alternate pick, 3 note per string, and he'll do this 2-way pick slanting that I just look at. I'm like, when I was 16 years old, 17 years old, I watched John Petrucci play, and I said, oh, that's how you can do it. You have to use a different way of picking. No one on earth can physically play alternate picked runs like that. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Until 2 weeks ago. And then I was like, oh, no, I was wrong. Yeah, no, that guy can do it.
He's scary, man. He's scary. You're scary too. And I hear you like try and play that. I know you think that you're fluffing your way through it, but I noticed something about the way you play, and you're such a fantastic player too. And you're one of the, like, everybody in your band shreds, but I look at your hand posture, and it's like, to me it looks perfect. Like the way your hand, like when you're playing fast and when you're going at it, your hands are like even with the fret, parallel with the frets. Mine are never that way, and it's been like that since I was a kid. They're always slanted, and I don't know if it's like what the cause is. I don't know if it's because I like playing with my thumb, or I play with my thumb because my natural posture is that. Whenever I picked up a guitar back in the mid '90s, it was always like this.
Yeah.
And sometimes just like when I'll see somebody I admire play, on the internet, I'll just be like, oh, I want to try this for like a day and see how this goes,
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel good. Like, it doesn't feel like guitar to me. It feels like I'm playing a new instrument almost, and it's scary to say that, but
well,
it also
the thing is with your size of hands, I think where it kind of. Okay, so first off, what scale length are you playing there on your guitar? 24,
this is a
3/4?
25 and a half. This
25
PRS.
and a half. Okay, so you have big enough hands that your pinky isn't at quite as much of a disadvantage when you play a little bit kind of like slanted like that. And that's kind of what I see. And honestly, I think that looks really cool. I think Paul Gilbert kind of looked like that sometimes too. And when I was younger, because I started playing when I was 12 also, but I was 12 I'm a couple years younger than you, so I was 12 in the year 2000. So when I started playing guitar and I would see Paul Gilbert, I'd be like, I need to look like that. That was my goal. I obviously don't want to sound like that, but I need to look like that. There's something about his, and him specifically, something about the way that his hands look. I want to look like that. And he would play, stuff like this, very square on, and I found that was very helpful for me. But also when he plays like slanted like that, it just looks cool as fuck, honestly. I'm just like, damn, it looks sweet. And this kind of leads me to like a big thing with guitarists, because we see ourselves almost exclusively, and you and me are huge exceptions here, because we shoot music videos, we do videos, we watch ourselves play. You've filmed yourself play. I'm sure quite a few times. We know what we look like from this perspective because we've seen it a million times. But what most guitar players see themselves is just like this perspective, and this looks so infinitely different. You don't realize how much of a guitar player you really look like. You look like one. Yeah. It's like playing in front of a mirror. You're like, oh shit, I am like that. That's what I see everybody else look like. You know what I mean? It's like such a subtle fucking thing, because, and it seems obvious, but it's like, well, yeah, but if your perspective is only ever this way, and it's the singular experience you've ever had, anybody looking at, like they play guitar like this, and everybody else looks a certain other way, it's like othering. It's kind of like, it's maybe detrimental to your opinion of yourself on the instrument. That's why I always suggest students, when I was teaching, play in front of a mirror, record yourself, make videos, whatever. You don't have to release them. Just get to know what other people see. Because, like, I think a big thing is hearing things that you play through somebody else's ears and seeing what you look like through somebody else's perspective. Both of those are really important for guitar, because I'll sit here and I'll play the runs that I just played for whatever, an hour or something, and I'll try to work on something. Everything will sound like dog shit at the end of that. I'm just like, fuck, it just sounds the same. But as soon as I show anyone, I'm like, oh, I get a little bit of like an outside perspective. I get a little bit of a boost. I'm like, oh, okay, they actually see it a different way. They hear it a different way. And it's really important. Right. It's fucking super important, man.
Yeah, I totally hear what you're saying. I think confidence is a big X factor when you're playing music. And I don't know if it's more so on guitar, maybe because, as kids or whenever we start playing guitar, we latch on to this whole rock star thing, right? Like that's just you look at a guitar like blank slate, right, before you even start playing, and you think of Jimi Hendrix or Eddie Van Halen or whatever, whoever
Yeah.
you grew up with on
Yeah.
who was on a poster on your wall, and it's empowering. It like if you pretend you're Jimi Hendrix, whatever, the first week that you're playing guitar, it's empowering. You feel powerful. There's this like bravado, and it fills you full of this like of fake confidence, basically. And I do believe, and this is why, okay, I play my guitar very low live.
Yeah.
And I believe that this is another reason why I'm sort of disadvantaged when it comes to like hand posture, is because I don't feel at home unless my guitar is pretty low. And it's hard to keep that if your guitar is strung really low like this, like your hands instinctively gonna
Yeah.
slant like that.
Yeah.
Because of how low it hangs off of your shoulder. To me, I feel way more confident when it's low. And I don't know if that has to do with, me idolizing guys like, James Hetfield, or like later in my life, Devin Townsend, guys like I look at, and if I can like emulate like a tenth of what they embodied, I feel good about myself. And feeling good about myself makes me a better performer.
Yeah.
Even if I'm disadvantaged in some textbook ways, you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
I'm not playing the same way that a Steve Vai or a Paul Gilbert would play, but like I'm being more myself. I feel more in my own skin, and so I'm a better performer in that way. But I do believe like you're saying, like confidence is a big thing when it comes to doing this, and especially doing it in a performance context. I mean in the studio as well. It's like you got to be confident in what you're doing.
Yes. Well, the here's my ultimate example, and I'm probably going to butcher this riff, but my ultimate example of confidence on the guitar is Limp Bizkit. I loved Limp Bizkit when I was younger. Honestly, let's be honest, I love them now. I was just watching Limp Bizkit live footage right before we got on this call, actually, and I'm going to butcher this riff. But because I don't quite remember exactly whatever it is, it's close enough to this. Imagine you go into your jam spot, you go into your recording session, you go into a writing session or whatever, and you say, I came up with a new riff. Here it is. Okay, it's whatever. It's some whatever that is.
Yeah, it's a break stuff.
Whatever that. Yeah, I think I'm playing it wrong, but that's the riff, and it's like the confidence that you need. And we aren't thinking about theory. We're not thinking about fucking different time signatures. I'm not thinking about technique. I'm thinking about two notes, and they're dissonant, and that's it. And it's mostly silence. And the amount of confidence you have to go in and be like, I got this new riff. Check it out. Bro.
Yeah.
You can't.
And it also, it's cool. Yeah. Because if you imagine yourself walking into a rehearsal space and be like, guys, like, check it out. I have a riff. Check it out. Just listen, be open to it. Yeah. It doesn't work in that context at all, like at all. But it is, like you're saying, it's ballsy because it also, you have to account for what the other instruments are doing. Like, what are vocals doing? Like what's the groove sound like? You have to envision these things, 5-6 steps beyond, and not just look at the riff as the be all end all of the part, or the intent of the part. Like, the riff is not the point.
No.
The riff works and it's cool, like isolated and kicking the song off. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm like trying to get better at. And there's some like, who's great in my band at this is Misha. Is like, he's great at coming up with these really impactful, simple riffs that hit without being like impressive on their own. But once you get it in a band context, it's like, Jesus Christ, that is the most ridiculous, like big dick energy riff I've ever heard. But played on an acoustic or played in a room or, in a Guitar Center or whatever, it doesn't sound like much. It's just, you have to wait until the vision comes together, and then it's just like world-ending level, And I'm trying to get better at that thing. I think I think I get in my own head as far as noodling a lot. And I don't know, I'm just trying to shift my approach with at least these past couple of years with how I write, is try to see multiple steps ahead, as opposed to my background historically, which is like the riff needs to be a riff, and then we'll continue with the song. The riff should be a sick ass riff on its own. It doesn't need to always be that way. It doesn't always need to be, but I'm trying to work on that.
Well, it actually shouldn't. It doesn't need to be. It actually shouldn't be like that all the time because you just
Yeah.
can't. It would actually be a detriment to the song. I think if the riff was all,
Mm-hmm.
if every single riff of the song was fucking killer and crushing, then none of the riffs
Yeah.
would be crushing. It just wouldn't. It wouldn't. It wouldn't work. That's just how music is. And I sit
Yep.
at home, on Saturdays. Typically, I'll do 3-4 hours of writing. I'll just sit here and I'll just see what I can come up with, and I'll just, I'll try to. I'll try to experiment with like getting my mind out of that perspective by distracting myself or not distracting myself or throwing my phone across the room or whatever it is. And I'm gonna try and come up with a sick riff. And the problem is I'm comparing it to riffs that are already finished. So I'll go, okay, well I'll have 5 notes. I'm like, that's pretty cool. And then I'll listen to a riff that I wrote 10 years ago. I'm like, well, that one's way cooler. It's like, well, yeah, dude, you worked on that. That's the finished section. It's got drums, bass,
Yeah.
vocals. It fits into the song nicely. So, but that kind of leads me to my next question with you is because you play in a band with 3 guitarists. I mean, like technically 4 because Nolly's, but Nolly still works with you guys with production and stuff like that, right? But and by the way, I actually first heard about him from his Blotted Science covers on YouTube because he did
Wow.
Synaptic Plasticity, which I'm like the biggest Ron Jarzenbeck fan ever. I love Ron Jarzenbeck so much. And I'm like, oh, this guy's crushing this song. And, but anyway, it's amazing. So you have 3 guitarists live. How do you utilize, so you come up with a riff and you go, okay, I got this idea. What do I have the other guys do? Do they figure it out themselves? Do you run out of things to do? Is it stressful to be like, we all got to do different things? Or do you never do different things? Are you doing unison melodies? Like, what the fuck how do you do that?
Well, yeah. I mean, we it's been an evolution, getting it to work. But I mean, I'll say that since day one of Periphery, it's never been a battle.
Yeah.
It's never like I think people see us and on paper would think that it's some kind of like this ego war
Yeah.
between 3 guitar players because we're notorious guitar players. I mean, are notorious for being partial to their own ideas, having egos. Being very proud to a fault.
Yeah.
And we are like we get very attached to each one of our ideas. So first of all, the dynamic in this band is really nice because if I get in a rut, I'm not panicking because I know that Jake and Misha are writing. And if same thing goes with Misha, and same thing goes with Jake. Like
Yeah.
the success of this band and the momentum of this band, the trajectory of it all is not affected by one guy or even 2 guys being in a rut. And that's something that I've dealt with in the past being in bands growing up. Like the old iteration of Haunted Shores when it was coming up like in the mid 2000s in Washington, D.C., I was the sole songwriter of the band.
Wow.
And if the well dried up, there's, what am I going to do? It's like, you can't force the material to come out and the band goes slower. We start to flounder a little bit and nothing's happening if there's a rut. The beauty of working with other songwriters and other, creatives who you trust is that there's sort of less pressure on everything, and therefore less heartbreak when your ideas are rejected or if parts are, edited or bastardized or Frankenstein or whatever you want to call it. So I love working in that environment. And I always have, working in Periphery. Typically the way it goes is I'll come up with a riff or an idea or Misha will or Jake will, and we'll bring it to the guys. We'll bring it to the other members and we'll say, how do you guys feel about this? And it's either thumbs up, this has potential, it's really cool, it's kind of cool, but it can go places, or thumbs down, it's just like, whatever. And we've kind of learned to deal with both sides of that. And if something's cool, we'll go ahead and track it. We'll go ahead and record it. Yeah. Just do bass, drums, both sides of guitar, obviously, whatever layers, and then see if we can build a song out from there. In a room together in front of a computer, passing a guitar back and forth typically.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to tracking the part, layering, it's usually on the person who wrote the riff. So if Jake comes up with this cool bridge sounding section, for example, he'll track it. Like we'll be with him in the room while he tracks it, and we'll bounce ideas off of each other as far as how to flesh out the rest of the section, and then we'll collaborate on where the song goes from there. So it's a very democratic process.
Right.
And Misha's the sort of like the producer role in all of it. He's sort of the glue that brings it all together. Since he's always really been that for the band. Like the first from the first record up to where we are now, he's sort of been this producer glue guy kind of role.
So what do you when you say democratic? Do you because in Archspire we have a rule that if one person doesn't like it, then we don't use it. So so it's like everyone has
That's
to like.
cutthroat. That's a little cut. That's harsh. I mean, I like it because it's like it gets you get your answers very quickly. I can imagine. Was it hard for people to come to that sort of like to embrace that culture?
We've never not done that. We've always done that from the very beginning. So it's been like that since I've been in the band. I've been in the band for, I mean, like I was in the band in 2009. That's kind of when there was like iterations of the band before that with our drummer and our bass player, but it was like the band Archspire started, let's call it 2009. And since then it's always been everybody in the room has to like the riff. Everybody in the room has to like the section. Essentially everybody has say over everything. So if you don't like my solo, you're like, I don't like that note in your solo. It's like, okay, well, if you really feel passionate about it, then I'm going to change it, because what's worse than playing something that you don't like every single night? I mean, that sucks, man. It's like, I don't like this riff. It's like, well, we're going to use it because, we don't have anything else. It's like, okay. And then like 2 years later, I'm like, fuck, I can't stand this fucking riff, dude. I don't want to play it anymore. Yeah. I don't want that. So we call it filters, basically. So there's 5 filters. So every single section, every single riff goes through 5 filters. So it starts out with the spark, whatever the riff is, and that's typically how it starts, is the riff. So Toby or myself, most of the time, like 95% of the time, come to the jam spot with the spark, the riff for the section. And whether that's fleshed out in terms of maybe one of us programmed some drums, maybe we have some bass, maybe we have some lead melodies over top of it, or it's just 10 notes of just a guitar riff, not even double track. So it really kind of depends. And then we take it from there and put it through everybody's filter. Everybody's so different, and so it ends up being, it is frustrating sometimes, yes. And I get from I gather from your reaction that that's not really how it works with you guys.
It is kind of. I was just. And it sounds like from what you're describing that there's a conversation, there's a dialogue, right? It's not like, if your singer doesn't like the riff, it's not like the riff's canceled. You know what I mean? Like, it's not Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah, that's correct. Harvey Weinstein is not our singer. That's true.
Yes, that is not a fact. Your riff isn't Mel Gibson,
right?
Well, he was in something, so I think he's back.
He's back. He's back, bro.
He's back.
Yeah, he's great director. He's doing The Passion of the Christ too.
Really? This
I'm
time
not
it's
joking.
personal? Really?
I'm not joking.
Cruise Control. Passion of the Christ 2. Cruise Control.
Cruise Control. Yeah, dude, yeah. No, yeah, he's doing it. Yeah.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah. Pretty.
No way.
No, yes. I'm not joking. I'm not joking. Yeah. Yeah. You can Google it afterwards. Yeah. Passion of the Christ 2. I think it. Yeah. Might have something to do with the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And I don't want to spoil anything for anybody that hasn't heard of the story, but I think that might be what it's about. I don't.
It'd be cool, dude. It'd be sick if the trailer was just a hand coming out of the ground, and then the logo.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that would be sick. Yeah, I would love to see that trailer. But yeah, I mean, like, when you take riffs, it is a very personal thing. You bring a riff in, and man, it's like here's part of like. It's what you think is cool. And sometimes it's not, I guess it's not even always what you think is cool. It's like, I wrote 3 riffs today. 2 of them, they can fuck off. I don't care. I just brought them in case maybe it jars something loose with somebody else in the room. Maybe this riff will be like, I don't like it, really, it's okay, but there's 2 notes in there. Somebody goes, oh, that's kind of cool. And honestly, like, in terms of writing, if you had to boil down to what the most exciting part of writing is, there's a couple different points, but maybe one of the most exciting parts is when you bring in something and everybody else goes, oh, that's really cool. That moment is like, holy fuck, that's like, it's like you solved a puzzle and you're like, and then you get the food pellets or whatever, I don't know, whatever you would get from this. I don't solve all the puzzles, but you would get that endorphins or what, everybody in the room. Maybe it comes down to just you just want to be accepted. Maybe that's it. You just
I
want to
mean,
be accepted.
that's an interesting way to say it.
That's
Yeah.
that really is just it, I think. Don't we all just
I
want to be
hear you.
accepted?
Yeah. No, but like I do think it's cool that you guys, and we have something similar. Like there's a discussion about it, and I think the discussion is the key point here. Like just because one or two people don't like the part or whatever, whether it's a vocal line, whether it's a guitar tone, whether it's a freaking drum beat, whatever, it doesn't mean that the part's scrapped. It means like, hey, let's have an honest talk about this.
Yeah.
What don't you like about it? How can we make it better?
Yeah.
And if we come to the conclusion that we can't make it better, it's just like it's not really doing it for me. Depending on the part, again, depending on the context, depending on a whole lot of things, it could be cut. But I think the most important thing we've learned throughout our career, and it sounds like you guys have gotten pretty good at it as well, is just learn to have a dialogue about it.
Yeah.
Without mincing words, without taking things personally, without any kind of things to hold you back, because what's worse is like here's the worst part is sort of half-assing this approach and being a dick about things, or saying half of what you mean and then holding on to the other half, and then that's the kind of stuff where you get into like, oh yeah, we lost 3 members last year,
Right.
or yeah, that guy's a dick, he writes all the music but I hear he's a dick, it's like that kind of stuff, and it's the dynamic that I think nobody really wants to achieve in a band,
Well, it's. I mean, I think in our jam space, sometimes it feels like this. It's you're in a minefield, and if you say the wrong thing, you step on a mine a little bit, and you have to be honest, and everybody has to be open, but at the same time, it's inevitable that at some point somebody is going to have their feelings hurt in some way, because you're like, I don't really like that riff, and they try to change it, and they go, okay, how about this? And you're still like, something about it I don't really like. That is just like, it's so, I mean, I try my very hardest to be like, okay, you don't like it. And honestly, there's a relief to scrapping things. I think honestly, the most cathartic and the most helpful thing a lot of the times is just to get rid of a part and just free yourself of the tyranny of trying to put this into a song. You're like, man, we had a riff for our on our last album, most recent album, and we called it the cursed riff. It's so it's a song called Abandon the Linear. So that riff I wrote maybe 2.5 years before we really started writing hardcore for the album. Or, it was an old riff. And we put it into song 2, didn't work. Put it into song 4, didn't work. Put it in song 6, didn't work. And we're like, okay, we're going to try and put this in one more song. We have 2 months to write an additional song because we had a little bit extra time. Let's start with this riff. And it ended up working. But man, every time we got rid of it, I was like, oh, okay. I feel like I can breathe a little bit, because for whatever reason, it just didn't slot in anywhere nicely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It happens.
It reminds me of something that happened on our most recent record as well. I had this riff. It's very kind of notey, jumped around the fretboard. Actually, wait. Okay. So I'll try here. Get the mic out of the way. So it's this riff. I showed it to the guys, and the reaction was kind of like, it's cool, but like doesn't really. We don't really know, what to do with it. It's it's whatever. It's kind of lukewarm reaction, I guess. Something like that. It had variations, but like
sick.
It was kind of, just hop. It sounded like a little bunny hopping around or whatever. But so we kept, we kind of scrapped it, and then at a point, we were working on this completely other different song. The song made the record. Our last album's called Dying Star, and there was a bridge. So the second chorus came. It was just like, wow, like let's try it and come up with a bridge section, and nothing was really sticking. Like we didn't really know where to take it. It was kind of a one note song, and it felt like it needed some kind of curveball.
Yeah.
Some change of key, something to sort of spice up the song. And I noticed like going to that riff, it was like almost in the same tempo. It was a different key, but the key change actually breathed life into the song. And I just slotted it in there, so it worked. Like it happened to be this really cool sort of change of pace in the song, and it just highlights something that I think is important to remember, for myself at least, is like, because of parts it doesn't stick, or if it sucks, or if it's not working, like just set it aside. Like there's no point, or there's no problem in cutting material, or like putting it off to the side, because who knows, you can't predict the nature of this whole process. It could be used in the future, it could not, but there's no sense in having any heartbreak or resentment over it.
Yeah, I mean, trying to force it in. It's cool that you found a spot for it. And one of the things that it's hard to really put into words is why a riff doesn't work. Because you said, like, it sounds like a bunny hopping or whatever, and you get a lukewarm reaction. And if only you knew, this maybe is how some people think. If only you knew enough music theory, if only you knew enough repertoire, if only you knew enough of their background. It's almost like if you had all of the information that, which is way too much information one human to really have. If only you had all of that, then you would know what riff would come next, or then you would know how to change the. But it's like an exercise in futility. You just can't know how. Okay, they say that judges, when they're sentencing criminals, they are harsher before lunch. So like after lunch, they're like less harsh. So you could have just caught them on like a bad day, and they're like, I just don't like it. And it's like, well, maybe they just don't like, and that's not to say that, because like people are people, and that's just how it is. And oftentimes too, if one person doesn't like it, you might tip the scales, and somebody goes, yeah, it's okay. Sometimes you're just kind of in the middle, and you're like, I want to see how it goes. I want to see if everybody else likes it or no. Or what. I'm just going to follow the pack today because I don't really feel like that strong either way. And I think it could turn into something cool, or it could be barking up the wrong tree and maybe an hour wasted of, sitting here trying to make it work. But it's like putting just as much output as you possibly can to try and spark something within everybody else. And honestly, that's why I love collaborative writing so much, because you have a lot of the pressure lessened off of you. You can bring something to somebody. I wrote a riff really recently for the album that we're writing right now, and I basically took, I took a very well-known video game song, a video game original soundtrack, and I took those chords, as 4 chords, and I changed the key. Actually, I didn't even change the key. I put them in the same key. I changed the time signature from 3/4 to 4/4. And I took the same idea for a melody on top, and I just rewrote the melody in my own style. And then I made a 2.5 minute long section. And I brought it to the band, and one of the guys was like, yeah, it's a lot of the same over and over again. I'm like, that's true. It is a lot of the same kind of, But as soon as we started adding drums and vocals, didn't seem like that. Did not seem like too much of the same. It now seems like a theme that is an overarching theme that you can build upon, and I love building upon ideas. You listen to what is Nobuo? What's his last name?
Uematsu.
Yeah. So when you listen to him talk, I mean, I love listening to any or reading any interviews that he's done. He talks about reusing themes, whether it's a leitmotif or a full theme. You get more mileage out of less stuff. And honestly, that makes, in my opinion, a better song. Even though both you and I are playing very technical, typically music, you still want it to be a song. If you have competing themes one after another, then none of them work. But if you have one theme that you can play in and out of and build upon and take away and strip apart, and that's a good song. I mean, it can lead to being a good song. And it's something I'm working on a lot in the last, couple years anyway.
Well, I have a lot of respect for you and for how you guys do it. It's funny. It's like you're right. Some of the most dense, like, it's just there's a lot happening.
There's a lot.
But you're right. Like you're 100% right in what you're saying. But my respect for you guys is sky high because it takes a lot of restraint considering what you guys do and the style of music that you guys play. And the first time I heard you guys' music, it was almost like the first time I heard Meshuggah. Like the first Meshuggah album I heard was Chaos Sphere in like the late 90s or maybe 2000. But my first opinion was like, wow, this is a lot. Like I don't know how to handle this. You know, it's like trying kimchi for the first time. You know, it's like or drinking, you know, like whatever, some crazy liquor. It's like I'm not prepared for this. I'm only 15 or whatever.
Yeah. Well, our vocalist calls it somebody put some meth into your joint.
Yeah. pretty much. But like your music is an onslaught, and some would say the same about Periphery's music, even though I think on the grand scale of things, it's relatively tame, especially, you know, on the Artspire scale, as I call it now. But it is an onslaught. There's a lot going on, whether you're talking about my band or your band. But if you try and remember these things, these like what I believe should be core tenets of songwriting 101, right? Like don't be afraid to lean on motifs and lean on themes. And just because you're not writing a concept record, like I think a lot of people associate those things, like, you know, a theme. Oh, scenes from memory. No, we're not. Like it doesn't have to be this overarching thing across, you know, multiple albums or one album. It can just be themes and not even necessarily a chorus. It can be a 2-note phrase. It can be a freaking vocal line. It can be a drum fill. It can be anything. I think those are core things to hold on to, regardless of what style of music you're playing. And I think you guys are kind of walking proof of that. You can play the most technically, like, just like bash you over the head with just notes, and it's a fucking onslaught, you guys' music. But at the same time, you guys are awesome and easy to be appreciated by even the most casual metal fan, because you guys write songs, and I really respect you guys for that. And I think we're on the same train. We're at different sections of the same exact train. We're in the dumb idiot section where like the toilet's clogged or whatever, and you guys are in the front, you know, drinking martinis and stuff and playing really fast and clean.
Who clogged that toilet, by the way? Just curious. Who clogged that toilet?
It was definitely Matt. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, great. All right. I got one more question, then we're gonna do one quick question from the audience, and then we'll wrap up. Really quick, your view on pinch harmonics. I love pinch harmonics. I put them into riffs all the time, and I even live, I'll add them. I'll be like, oh, this riff, I should have put the pinch harmonic in here. So, you know, and I didn't, or what, and it's probably annoying as fuck, because if you think about it, just like that, it's like, all right, I love the sound of it, but some people don't. But anyway, so your perspective, what do you think about them? Do you think that they are, like, do you throw them in everywhere? How do you get them? What is your technique for getting them?
It's my favorite, dude. It's my favorite thing. It's my favorite fucking thing. I love it. And seriously, I'm not even talking about like forget all this. I don't really do much of that, but dude, what I do, and I'm in love with this, and I have to almost like talk myself into doing it less. And sometimes, like maybe like 80% of the time, 90% of the time, the guys appreciate when I do it because they think it's cool and spontaneous, but I can tell the other 10% or 20%, they just like, stop. No. But I can't, because I grew up on Randy Rhoads and I grew up on Eddie. And I mean, even like Zakk Wylde, just throwing it in whenever, because the impulse hits you, or because you're feeling it, or you're in the zone, or there's just something that makes you want to choke up on your pick and dig in and do something that you've never done before, unscripted. And so, what I've been doing that I find kind of funny but exciting at the same time. So that's a tuning that we use now. I introduced it to the band a couple records ago for a song called Reptile. We use it pretty frequently now. It's just a really fun. I think I first heard of it through. There's two places. It was the band Sixth.
Oh yeah.
And Mastodon used it. Yeah, back in the day. So it's G G is the low 2 string. But it's also really satisfying because it's the easiest thing ever to do pinch harmonics on. And I just, I don't think I'm doing anything different, not reinventing the wheel as far as it goes. I just choke really, really, really far up, so there's barely any pick sticking out.
Where does the string touch your thumb? Where does it? Is it on the tip of your thumb?
Yeah. Yeah. But I think it does graze my thumb.
The range of that pinch harmonic sounds so sick.
But I love it, dude, because you're just... Well, one thing I like doing is like these depression bend harmonics where it's like instead of bending the note up, you're going...
Yeah.
That can be... That we actually wrote that into a riff. I put that into the verse of Reptile. Okay. So yeah, it can be cool. It can really just like punches through the mix like a knife, you know.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, and I see it when I put it in a gap. Like let's say there's like a big staccato section, like for instance the end of we have a song called Atropos where the end is just like, it's a really simple, there's a lot of stop start stuff, but if you just throw in things, you can see people like physically their head will turn, just like what is going on, like why did you do that, and like this, I don't know if it's a cool thing that you just did or if it sucks, but I don't know, it's fun, spontaneous thing. It's just another way to have fun with guitar.
I love it, dude. Yeah. They're my buddy Malcolm. He plays in the band Inferi, very amazing, technical, fucking awesome band. And he calls that merch money. That's what he calls that one. He'll call pinch harmonics like that merch money. He's like, that's merch money, dude. We did.
There. So how do you do that 2 times in a row like that?
I don't know.
That's wild.
Well, I ripped it off from Infinite Annihilator because they do that.
Oh.
Yeah. But because they're a studio band, it'll just be like, we'll just take that and we'll just copy paste it and then never have to worry about ever doing it in person because they don't play shows. So for us, it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna steal it because I love it, but I'm gonna have to figure out how to really do it. But yeah, I love.
So you don't fake that. You play. So I just saw you play that. Like that's what I can't do it. It's I got to work to get it even. Like you got it so even.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
Shit.
The real tough. Trying to get because just the spot where it is on the low string, that I struggle with that one. It's not quite clear. But the high one, yeah, I mean that's my favorite. Actually, you know what? That take real quick before I go into our last question here. That riff, there's a gap in there. Okay, that gap was the computer that our producer was using. It didn't render out the pinch harmonic that was supposed to be in that gap. And so we're like, it's okay. So we'll listen to the actual version when you actually fix it. And he left it to us overnight, and we're like, yeah. That sounds better, actually. The computer fucked up, but it got rid. But it actually, that gap, it fell in the right spot. And I think it's really cool to just be open to like fuck ups like that, where it's like, sometimes you'll take a riff and you'll move it. Okay, we're gonna experiment with that riff. I'm gonna move it over here. Okay, I'll quickly do it, move it, play. Oh, whoops, it's in the wrong spot. I'm like, oh wait, no, that sounds way better. It's like to be open to that kind of stuff is really important, I think.
Dude, that's funny. Like I was having this conversation with a couple of my bandmates, and like, there's so many records that we put on a pedestal, right? Like our favorite albums of all time, we revere and we worship every detail of them.
Yeah.
That we think everything is deliberate.
Yes.
And that there's these little quirks about it that we're just, that's just Devin Townsend being a mastermind or a genius or whatever. And then you read the stories, and there's so many instances of stuff like this that are just mistakes or oversights or shortcomings,
Yeah.
like levels not being mixed properly, or things being left out, or like whatever, like beats missing,
Yeah.
stuff like you just described,
Yeah.
like, and then we eat it all up, and we're like, yeah, man, they're visionaries, but
Yeah.
like, yeah,
That's
yeah.
sweet. Okay, I got one question real quick before we're done here from a YouTube member here, Drone Corps. How has your writing process changed over the last decade in terms of tools that you're using and that kind of stuff? So, like 10 years ago, Mark, versus now, Mark, what would you do different? Would you do the same kind of stuff? Are you using something new? Are you thinking about the instrument in any markedly different way? Or are you still kind of the same, 18, 19-year-old guy just doing the same stuff over and over again, but you're just getting better at it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've changed too much as far as how I play guitar. I would like to think maybe I'm like a tighter guitar player, seeing as I've played, hundreds of shows in the last 10 years. But I don't think anything about my playing has changed. What has changed in a big way, and this is very deliberate, is the way that I document my ideas. So I tend to overplay a lot creatively.
Yeah.
I want to fill in all the blanks. And again, it's coming from my background, and I'm constantly fighting against it. Trying to put as many notes into a riff as possible, because I want to hear a riff that sounds like a riff, right? Because I'm a guitar player. And what I have to remember at the end of the day is I play in a band, and a lot of my favorite riffs in this band, a lot of my favorite moments and sections in this band, even up to this day, there's space.
Yeah.
And there's moments to breathe,
Yeah.
like really breathe. And there's very big minimalist components about sections that I love. And I have to remember that at the end of the day. And what I've done to sort of remedy that, as far as in my own writing, is I'll write in front of a computer. And that's not something I really did. Like my first sort of half of my career in Periphery, I would just noodle. I would get in front of an amp, practice amp, whatever, no computer around, maybe a cell phone to document anything that's cool. And I would just riff and noodle and come up with something that, made my ears perk up.
Yeah.
And then just record on my cell phone, try my best to remember it, and then play it for the guys, and then track it. Now, what I'll do to mix it up and sort of keep this holistic approach to a song in my mind is just right in front of a computer. And I know that's the baseline for a lot of guitar players now, which I think is great.
Yeah.
Like there's so many, talented engineers and home producers, people who can create records from their own bedrooms pretty much. I know that's standard for those kinds of guys, but not for me. I come from a very different background. So I've actually gotten better at that. Like, the last record, I contributed a lot of ideas where I wrote in front of a computer, and I was able to not overwrite. I was able to sort of get to the crux of an idea and make it, and get the point across with less notes, without, trampling all over what could potentially be a vocal line, or layers, or things that could slot in between those spaces that I'm putting in there very deliberately. I don't know. I guess maybe it's just a little bit more deliberate and thought out now, So, just maybe a little hair splitty answer.
Yeah,
but
I think you're right. I mean, I think if I was to go back 10 years, 15 years into what I was writing then, I never wrote in front of a computer. I think it's really important for me to do. I think it's also important to sometimes get out of that context and just go to play just to play. And I don't do it enough. Because when you do it for when you do it for a living, you do the band long enough, and it's like, well, riffs pay my rent, so I should write riffs that are good. And it's like, well, not everything that I ever play has to be amazing. Sometimes I just have to enjoy it. And so I'll go to the jam spot sometimes and I'll just play really loud, and I'll just sit there and just kind of enjoy it. And every once in a while, an idea will pop out from there. And I'll try to track it, but most of the time those are kind of just whatever. But yeah, just trying to remember to really still enjoy it. But yeah, I mean, writing in front of a computer, obviously it's very important because it just speeds things up. I mean, now we're writing, I think we're doing kind of something similar where I'll be on that you guys do, where I'll be on my laptop at the jam spot. We have the entire jam spot mic'd up with the drums and everything's plugged into whatever. And so we can okay, here's an idea. Okay, track that. Okay, I got it. We'll move it around, double track it, get the drums. Drum idea doesn't work. Try it again. Okay, vocals, and we'll do a rough thing of vocals. Like, how does this part sound? Let's speed it up, slow it down, whatever. And what we're doing now is I like to call broad strokes. So we're starting an oil painting of a song, and we're just doing the landscape. We're just doing the horizon. We're like, okay, who gives a fuck if this riff sucks? It's gonna change. It'll be fine. We'll paint over it. That's fine. But the maturity that you have to develop, that you have to, like, you have to keep in mind that you're comparing, and this even goes part to part in a song. You have one part that you spent 2 months on, you're like crushing, and you're like, all right, let's write another part. And it's like that drawing that you see on Instagram, that meme where it's like this beautiful back of a horse that's like amazing, and the front is like a shitty kid's drawing. And you're like, man, that line, we need to, everything after this amazing part sucks. But you just have to keep in mind, like, it'll get there. You know, and I think it's really important what you said about waiting, waiting to make judgment on things before you, like, you realize that now things can slot in certain ways. So maybe the riff isn't as notey as you would want it to be right away, but the slots that you offer now, other instruments, that'll add to the complexity and add to the tapestry of the section that you're making. And I mean, that's what people hear. It's super. But anyway,
dude, real quick, just writing in front of a computer also allows you to make the break stuff riff. You know what I mean?
That's
like,
true. Yeah.
If we're going to stay on the Limp Bizkit tangent, which I think we should.
Yes.
You play that riff in a room with your buddies, and it doesn't sound that impressive. But if you are in front of a computer and you can put drums underneath and get the groove going and start tracking vocals and get the bass going, it's like, oh shit, like, I get it. You know, this is a section, and it's not super complicated, but it just doesn't work. It doesn't work in any other setting.
Yeah, man, I love that riff, dude. Oh,
dude, you know what's a sick riff? Come
on. How
fucking massive, dude.
How did they write that before really 8-string production models were even a thing? I think. I mean, that was like, when was Nookie out? Like 98 or something. Like
98. Yeah, there was no gent, but that's a fucking gent riff. And is that 8-string or a baritone? I don't know, but it's basically, it could be either.
I think it's a really weird guitar. I think, as far as I remember, and I could be wrong, I feel like it's like a 4-string guitar or something. Like, it's something weird. It was some instrument.
I know he had a weird, like a funky, like a PRS baritone. It could have been 4 or 5 strings.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I love that riff, dude. It's crushing. I'll still go back and I'm like, you know, you have, I mean, syncopation wise, that riff is very interesting. Dun 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 dun. Like, it's got the push pull that really interesting and awesome and in my opinion maybe the most difficult thing to write, catchy rhythms. Because catchy melodies, you can write a catchy melody, get stuck in your head, but a catchy rhythm, you have less tools available. So creating a relationship that's interesting between the kick and the snare and the riff that has a push-pull drag thing to it, and that it doesn't have the notes on all of the expected times. Because I think a couple of years ago I heard the reason why people move and dance to music is because they're trying to, somewhere deep in their brain, trying to reconcile the push-pull between what they think the rhythm should be and what it actually is. And when you have something like that, it just makes you go like this. You're like, it makes you do that. And it's like a simple thing, but man, I mean, Wes Borland is the king of simple, awesome riffs, in my opinion.
Yeah. I agree. It's the hardest thing to do, man. Hardest thing to do.
It's so hard. Yeah. Anyway. Dude, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I absolutely loved it. I feel like we got into some really cool stuff, and I really hope that we can get together and hang out in person at some point, because I think that we share a lot of the same music philosophy and writing philosophy, and it's just it's a pleasure to hear your take on composition.
Likewise, man. Likewise, and the amount of respect I have for you and your band. I told you this when we played together. It was only 2 shows. You know, I wish it were more shows. And I kind of want to say we should just tour Europe for a couple of weeks or something. Next time around, when your guys' record is out, and when our next stuff is out, we should do something again. It's just too good. You know, I wanted more than a taste. wanted more than a taste.
Yeah, it's very
That's
fun.
all I got.
Before I let you go, is there anything that you want to plug? Is there anything you got going on right now that you want people to know about?
Passion of the Christ 2. Yeah, it comes out 2025 now. Not really, man. Periphery's in a peculiar spot where maybe a couple tours away from being done with this touring cycle for Periphery 5, and then I'm really excited to mention what we're doing next, but I can't say anything yet.
Perfect.
But there's a lot of ideas cooking. We definitely want to write now. We're not content to wait another 4 years. I think that's how long it took between releases last time.
Yeah.
We're itching to get back to it, and doing the touring that we've been doing, where, you know, we get to do these shorter tours, and most importantly, pick bands that we're super passionate about, like you guys and Pliny and the guys we had on those shows.
Yeah.
It's like being around that, it's impossible not to be inspired and not, you know, be itching to get back to your war room and start planning and strategizing and be like, all right, how do we one up ourselves? How do we one up last thing we did? Let's do it. So that's where we are right now. I can't say anything yet, but there's stuff in the mix.
Amazing. All right, cool, man. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I will see you soon.
All right. Thanks, Dean.